"I think I'm falling for you," she said softly, standing barefoot in my kitchen, wearing Jacob's old sweatshirt and holding a cup of coffee like it was a lifeline. I looked at her like she was made of glass, because in that moment, I knew I had two choices: pretend I didn't feel the same, or ruin everything. That was the beginning of the hardest story I've ever lived. And before I go on, I just want to thank you, yes, you. For showing up, for listening, for your comments, your messages, your likes. Sharing this part of my life hasn't been easy. But your support gives me the boldness to tell the truth, even when it hurts. Even when it makes me look like the villain in my own story. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 34. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I work as a freelance editor, mostly romance novels, which is a little ironic, given the way my own story turned out. I never considered myself remarkable. I was the quiet one. Always the guy in the background, fixing things, never the one people waited up for. But my brother Jacob, he was the opposite. Jacob was loud, charming, unstoppable. You either loved him or you really loved him. He was 2 years older than me and spent most of his 20s getting into trouble and somehow always landing on his feet. He was also married. To a woman named Isabel. She was delicate in the way quiet strength often is. The kind of person who noticed if your voice cracked when you said, "I'm fine." The kind of person who didn't just love you, she paid attention to you. When Jacob died in a motorcycle accident 3 years ago, Isabel was 29, a widow, and the mother of their 6-year-old daughter, Ava. He was gone. Just like that. No helmet. No goodbyes. At the funeral, I hugged Isabel with arms that didn't know what to do. She was shaking. I remember her makeup was smudged from crying, and Ava clung to her leg like the world was crumbling, and it was. I told her, "If you ever need anything, just ask." She nodded, not because she heard me, but because people say yes when they're too broken to say anything else. I didn't expect she'd ever call. But 2.5 years later, she did. It was early spring. April. The last cold snap had just passed. Trees were blooming again. She called and said, "Ethan. I don't know what to do." Her lease was up. She'd fallen behind on rent. Her graphic design business had taken a hit during the pandemic. And daycare for Ava had become impossible to keep up with. "I just need a few months. Just to catch my breath." I had space. A finished basement apartment. Quiet neighborhood. No roommates. No complications. "It's yours," I said, without thinking. She moved in a week later. She brought 2 suitcases, a box of Ava's drawings, and a stack of framed photos of Jacob she never unpacked. The first month felt normal. She paid for groceries when she could. Took over laundry duties. Helped clean. We lived like roommates with an invisible boundary between us. Ava adjusted fast. She called me Uncle E. She started leaving her books all over the house and telling me stories about her school crush. Yes, 9-year-olds have those now. Isabel was always up before me. Made coffee. Played Miles Davis in the mornings. She liked to hum when she worked. She'd sit at the kitchen island sketching logo designs, her hair tied back, glasses slightly crooked. At night, she and Ava would curl up on the couch and fall asleep to Pixar movies. And I started falling into something I didn't recognize. It was a Saturday night. I came home from a grocery run and found her crying on the porch swing. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, wiping her face. "It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm grieving him all over again." I sat beside her, handed her a glass of water. "I'm sorry too," I said. "I wish I could say the right thing." She looked at me. Eyes red, but soft. "You always say the right thing, Ethan. You just don't know it." We sat there in silence. The kind of silence that feels full instead of empty. Then she laid her head gently on my shoulder. I didn't move. I didn't speak. But inside, a door I'd been trying to keep closed slowly creaked open. It was small things. She started cooking dinner for the three of us, even when I said she didn't have to. She'd sit on the other end of the couch, feet curled under her, but her eyes would linger. We laughed more. Talked more. Sometimes, we'd sit outside after Ava went to bed and watch the stars, our legs brushing just slightly. Once, I caught her staring at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Once, I stared back. I told myself it was loneliness. That we were both just surviving. But then came the night I couldn't lie to myself anymore. It was late June. Warm, still. Ava had gone to bed after a day at the pool. Isabel and I sat on the back porch, barefoot, sipping wine, music low. We talked about Jacob. About how he could never sit still. About how he proposed at a Waffle House because he forgot to make dinner reservations. We laughed. And then she turned serious. "You know," she said, "I don't think Jacob ever saw me." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, he loved me. But he never really knew me. Not the quiet parts. Not the parts that needed more than flowers and apologies." She looked at me then. Really looked. "But you do." I swallowed hard. "Isabel." She didn't wait. "I think I'm falling for you," she said. The words hung in the air like smoke. My heart raced. My throat tightened. "You're tired," I said, standing. "It's been a long day." "I'm not tired, Ethan," she said, rising too. "I'm just done pretending." She went to bed. I stayed outside for an hour, staring at the stars, trying to convince myself I'd misunderstood. That it was a fluke. That grief makes people say things they don't mean. But deep down, I knew. I felt the same. And I hated myself for it. We didn't talk about it the next morning. Or the day after that. She avoided eye contact. I buried myself in work. Ava seemed unaffected. Innocent, bright, joyful. But the air in the house had changed. Every glance felt heavier. Every touch accidental but electric. I knew we couldn't stay like this. But I didn't know how to go forward either. The night we crossed the line, the air was thick with silence. No fireworks. No music. Just the hum of the ceiling fan and a single look that said everything we tried not to say. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Raw. Real. And afterward, we didn't speak for hours. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what we'd done. But she just laid there, her hand in mine, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The next day, the house was too quiet. Ava had gone to spend the weekend with Isabel's mother. It was just us. Two adults walking on broken glass. She made coffee. I cooked eggs. We didn't talk about the night before. But everything had changed. We sat across the table like strangers who knew too much about each other. Eventually, she broke the silence. "Ethan. I don't regret it." I looked up. Her voice didn't shake. "But I know this complicates everything," she said. "Your family. Ava. Jacob." His name hung in the air like a ghost. "I regret the timing," I admitted. "Not the feeling." She nodded. "So, what now?" We spent the next few weeks dancing between reality and whatever that night had awakened in us. We didn't tell anyone. We didn't talk about labels. But our hands found each other more often. Her head rested on my shoulder more freely. The space between us on the couch disappeared. It wasn't lust. Not really. It was the kind of closeness that comes from shared grief. Shared loneliness. A need to be seen. But it couldn't last. Not in secret. My mother invited us to dinner one Sunday. She didn't know anything yet. Just missed her girls, as she called Isabel and Ava. We sat at her big round table. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Green beans with almonds. The meal she always made when she needed comfort. Isabel and I barely looked at each other. But Mom? She noticed everything. When Isabel laughed at my joke a little too hard. When my hand lingered on Isabel's lower back just a second too long as I pulled her chair out. She didn't say a word until dessert. Then, as she passed the cobbler, she looked at me, eyes sharp, voice soft. Are you sleeping with her? The table went silent. I didn't deny it. Isabel closed her eyes. Ava looked confused. Mom stood up. I'm done eating. Outside, in the driveway, she let it all out. You were supposed to protect her, Ethan. Not pursue her. I didn't plan this, I said. No, you never do, she snapped. You just fall into things and leave others to deal with the fallout. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is watching my dead son's wife fall into bed with his brother. What's not fair is how Ava will grow up confused, and people will talk, and none of you seem to care about that. I care, I said, voice cracking. More than you know. She didn't cry. That's the worst part. She just looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. And then she got in her car and drove off. That night, Isabel came into my room. Her eyes were tired. Her shoulders heavy. I don't want to be someone's mistake, she said. You're not. I don't want to raise Ava in whispers. Or be the reason your mother hates you. She doesn't hate me. She's hurt, she said. We all are. I pulled her close. I didn't fall for you because you were Jacob's. I fell for you in spite of that. She smiled, faintly. I fell for you the moment you let Ava win at Monopoly and pretended she was a genius strategist. We laughed. For the first time in days, we laughed. But the storm wasn't over. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a publisher in Seattle. They wanted me on site for 6 months. Big deal. Big money. Fresh start. I told Isabel. She said nothing for a long time. Then, she asked, are you going because of me? No, I said. I'm going because, maybe we need air. Maybe we need to see if this is real without the pressure. She nodded, slowly. You'll come back. I'll always come back to you, I said. We kissed. And that was the last time I saw her for 8 months. While I was gone, we wrote each other. Real letters. Not texts. Not emails. Ink. Paper. Stamps. She told me how Ava was doing. That she started ballet. That she missed my French toast. I told her about the rain in Seattle. About editing a novel that reminded me of us. Each letter ended with, yours, always. When I came back, she was waiting at the gate. Ava ran into my arms. Isabel stood a few feet behind, smiling. Tears in her eyes. I walked up to her, took her hand, and whispered. Still yours. Still mine, she said. It wasn't perfect. Some family never fully accepted it. Friends gave side glances. But most people forgot. Moved on. Because love doesn't ask for permission. It simply stays, or it doesn't. We never married. We never needed to. But every morning, I'd wake up to her hand in mine. And that was enough. If you've made it this far, thank you. For listening. For not judging. For holding space for a story that doesn't fit into neat boxes. Love isn't always convenient. Or clean. Or easy. Sometimes, it grows in the cracks of heartbreak. And sometimes, it's born out of loss. But when it's real, it changes you. And if you've ever loved someone you weren't supposed to, know this. You're not alone.